Every observant Jew recites the Shema Israel twice a day, usually at dawn and at dusk. This prayer serves as a centerpiece of the morning and evening Jewish prayer services. It could be considered the most important prayer in Judaism. It starts with the verses of Deuteronomy, chapter 6, verses 4 through 9, which in that book of the Bible follow directly the presentation of the Decalogue. Deuteronomy, chapter 5, verses 4 through 21. In the Shema, the verb ahav is prominent. Hear, O Israel, Shema Israel. The Lord our God is the only Lord. Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. And you shall love ve'ahavta, the Lord your God, with all your heart, bechol levavcha, and with all your life, uvechol nafshecha, and with all your might, uvechol meodecha. The translation of this prayer in the Septuagint is specially enlightening for the meaning of the verb ἀγαπᾶν, which is one of the 4 main verbs for love in Greek. The idea of you shall love the Lord your God of the Shema Israel has been translated by the verb ἀγαπᾶν in the Septuagint. I will quote now the translation of the Hebrew text of the Shema in Greek as we find it in the Septuagint version in the Codex Alexandrinus, which is from the 5th century and is kept nowadays in the British Library. Acque Israel, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is the only Lord. And you shall love, agapeseis, the Lord your God, exholestes kardia su, with all your heart, kai exholestes psyche su. The word psyche can be translated either with all your soul or with all your life. Kai exholestes dynameos su, with all your strength. This prayer reflects a very special bond between God and the one who recites it. God, who has made a special covenant of love with his people, is also very demanding with him and asks for no less than exclusivity in love. 3 elements of our inner being are requested in the very love that we give to God. Our heart, kardia, our life, psyche, and our strength, dynamis, are to be applied to our love for God. In the New Testament, the text of the Shema appears 4 times, twice in the mouth of Jesus and twice in the mouth of a man, expert in the law of Moses, who dialogues with Jesus. What is strange is that out of these 4 instances, the text of the Shema appears twice, requesting us to apply 4 elements instead of 3, like we had in the Old Testament, from our inner being to our love for God. We shall take here the passage of Luke, which is the more characteristic. The text of the Gospel of Luke says the following. Just then, a lawyer stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he said, what must I do to inherit eternal life? Jesus said to him, what is written in the law? What do you read there? The lawyer answered, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, exholestes kardia su, which in Hebrew would be bechol levavcha, and with all your soul, kai encholete psyche su, which in Hebrew would be uvechol nafshecha, and with all your strength, kai encholete ischui su, which in Hebrew would be uvechol meodecha, and with all your thinking faculty, kayenchole te dianoia su, and your neighbor as yourself. Well, we all know the end of the passage. And Jesus said to him, "You have given the right answer. Do this, and you will live." We have thus here 4 elements instead of the 3 that we find in the Hebrew text. And in the Codex Alexandrinus that we mentioned before, for the Greek version, we find heart, soul, strength, and thinking faculty. However, dianoia, thinking faculty. However, in the Hebrew text, there is no mention of dianoia. The Pharisees' response to Jesus also does not include dianoia. If I take Mark chapter 12, verse 33. Why does the Gospel expand the meaning of the Hebrew Bible in order to ask us to love God with all our dianoia, with all our mind? To answer this question, we need first to notice that the Hebrew text has been translated into Greek mentioning 3 elements and not 4, but in 2 different ways. The Codex Alexandrinus, as we said, translated the original vechol levavecha as exclusivity kardia su, from all your heart. Now, the word lev in Hebrew has some undertones that are not always perceived by a Westerner. The lev, the heart, what we translate usually as heart, is the seat of thoughts and feelings. In Hebrew, we usually say, chashavti belibi, I thought in my heart. What we would say in English, I thought in my mind. Thus, the Hebrew word is both the seat of feelings, which for us Westerners would be the heart, kardia, and the seat of thoughts, dianoia, which for us Westerners would be the brain. In the Magnificat, the Gospel of Luke, chapter 1, verse 51, Mary says that God has shown strength with his arm. He has scattered the proud in the thoughts of their heart, dianoia kardia sauton, with the dianoia of their hearts. This is why we find a variant reading in the Septuagint, when it translates the Hebrew text of the Shema, bechol levavcha. In the 3 other main ancient codices of the Septuagint, which are the Sinaiticus, which is from the 4th century, the most ancient one, and then the Vaticanus and the Codex Ephraim, which are both from the 5th century, we find, instead of exholes kardia su, we find exholes dianoia su. So in the Gospel of Luke, the true translation of bechol levavecha are given as they reflect 2 complementary aspects of our inner being. Jesus is asking us to love God with all our kardia, with all our heart, let us understand, with all our feelings, but also with all our dianoia, with all our thoughts, making our love for God complete and stemming from our whole being. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, exholes kardia su, and with all your soul, kayenchole te psyche su, and with all your strength, kayenchole te ischui su, and with all your thinking faculty, kayenchole te dianoia su, and your neighbor as yourself. Jesus finally concludes saying that this is the right answer. Do this and you will live.